this meeting will reconvene to open session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recording secretary, can you please take roll?
Ms. Allen?
Present.
Ms. Lizardo?
Present.
Ms. Gates?
Present.
Ms. Bettencourt Castañeda?
Present.
Ms. Sarmiento is absent.
Thank you. Item 5, public communication. In closed session, the board voted unanimously to appoint Dr. Renato Vargas as the new Director of Student Support Services. Congratulations. I invite you to the podium if you'd like to say a few words.
Hi everyone, I'm Ray Vargas, and I'm really excited to be part of National School District. I'm looking forward to being part of the district, the community, and really enhancing the great work that the district has done. So thank you again to the board and to cabinet for the vote of confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome to the NSD family. In closed session as well, the board voted unanimously to appoint Catherine Melanies as the new Director of Educational Services.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to again thanks the board again for this opportunity. I'm really honored to have this chance to support the district as a whole, and really excited to just see where we can go with our students. There's so much potential, and I'm just really excited. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Also in closed session, the board voted unanimously to appoint Dr. Olga Maritza Kippen as a new Assistant Superintendent. Okay. 1 second. Okay.
We're secure.
My apologies, we have somebody locked out.
Very secure.
Sorry about that. I will begin again. In closed session, the board voted unanimously to appoint Dr. Olga Maritza Kippen as the new Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources pending a successful contract negotiation. Congratulations. I'd like to invite you up to the podium to say a few words.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud to be able to serve this community, and I apologize for walking in late. The door was locked. But I'm super excited, and my number one goal is to ensure that we have the best services for our students and the best people supporting our students. And so thank you so much. I'm very proud of this community, and I am happy to serve.
Thank you. Item 5, public communications. Public communications provides the public with an opportunity to address the board regarding an item on the agenda or other topic. Anyone wishing to address the board shall submit a request for an oral communications card. Cards are available near the entrance to the boardroom and are to be submitted to the recording secretary. A member of the public who wishes to address the board on any such matters is limited to 3 minutes for one matter and up to 5 minutes for all matters. There shall be a limit of 20 minutes for any matter unless such time limit is waived by the majority vote of the board. Members of the public may not yield any time to other speakers. No board action can be taken.
Yeah.
Item 6 is presentations. Item 6A is to introduce and welcome new employees. Dr. Bear?
Okay. All right, well, thank you. I'm very excited tonight to welcome some of our new employees. Our first one is Rebecca Herndon. I don't think Rebecca is here. Anyway, Rebecca Herndon is a speech and language pathologist. Ms. Herndon holds a speech language pathologist services credential. She completed her speech language pathology internship at Monterey Bay Speech Therapy and at Pajaro Valley Unified School District. She holds a BA in Business Administration from San Diego State University and a master's in Speech Language Pathology from San Jose State University. Next, we have Dinah Maruvo, a speech language pathologist. I don't believe she is with us here tonight either. Ms. Maruvo holds a speech language pathologist services credential and an administrative services credential. She's worked as a clinical fellow speech language pathologist for the San Ysidro School District, a student clinician for the Coronado Unified School District, and as a second grade teacher for the Chula Vista Elementary School District. She holds a bachelor's degree in liberal studies from San Diego State University, a master's in educational leadership from Point Loma Nazarene University, and a master's in communication science disorders from Emerson College. Next, we have Jennifer Perez. Yay, Jennifer, you're here. So Jennifer, also a a resource specialist program teacher. She is here receiving her pin. Jennifer holds an educational specialist mild moderate credential. She's worked for the Escondido Union School District as a special education teacher, case manager, and as an assistant site coordinator for ARC, San Diego County. She holds a bachelor's in critical race and ethnic studies from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and a master's of education from National University. Welcome to the district. We have one final new staff member. This is Iris Ariano Balbuena, who is a computer systems technician. She has worked as a substitute computer systems technician for National School District since 2017. She holds a BA/BS in computer science from University of ABC University in Ensenada and a master's in education from the University of SCUDC in Ensenada. Unfortunately, she is ill, so I was not able to be here this evening.
Thank you and welcome to the board. Item 7 is agenda. Item 7A is to accept the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? If none, please vote.
Deanna passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Item 8 is approve a consent agenda routine items of business. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be acted upon in one action by the board. It is understood that the superintendent has recommended approval for these items. There will be no discussion prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. All items approved by the board will be deemed as considered in full and adopted as recommended. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? If none, please vote.
And passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Item 9, policies, regulations, and bylaws. 9A is to adopt Regulation 3400, management of district assets and accounts. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion with discussion, please.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second with discussion. Okay.
One of the things that I was we've had discussion about this a little bit as you presented it to us, Mr. Adamessian, about this this new policy addition being based on making sure that all accounts are clear, that we know that they are ours, that we know that we have them, that there are multiple signers. Like we've established that. One of the things I'm wondering is what happens in situations, for instance, where someone resigns or retires or is ill or takes a leave of absence? What happens for those situations? Like how quick a change can we make? Because I also know that the bank gave us some pushback on the closing the account that kind of drove this. So in order to not find ourselves in a position again where we have an account that's in limbo for an extended period of time, what can we do? What can we do to make that better?
We currently are, so our procedure is basically prior to anyone coming on board. So for instance, when I was brought on board, the board was presented changes with signatories during that same time frame. So those changes were made prior to me even starting. So I had authorization for signatories. It's just part of the process of offboarding, or as someone leaves the district, if they're a signatory, those changes are brought to the board in resolution. It's one of those things we also have to submit to the county. That person is responsible for all of the warrants, signatory wise. But in this instance, what prompted our change in our policy here is this was an account that was just not part of our normal everyday accounts. We didn't use it every day. It just fell through, to be honest, part of the signatory process. This change that we're asking for today in board policy, making sure that there's more than one signatory. It's the superintendent and the designee or designees. So it could be all of cabinet or all of executive cabinet that are signatories on these accounts. As far as putting like a timeline or putting say something like 2 weeks from the time the person departs the school district to change them, we're sort of at the mercy of the banks. It took 6 months for Bank of America to approve changing the signatories on this account. And that's because every bank has their own procedures. We presented them we spoke to 3 different people. They all have 3 different requirements for what we needed to do. I'd imagine Union Bank, who we also bank with, has different requirements. So it is, it's something we just work with the banks on to bring to the board in terms of what they require, but putting a timeline in it would be difficult. But our procedures are, if someone does leave the school district or someone does join it and they are supposed to be a signatory, we bring that to the board concurrently.
So it's something you're saying that we would do on our end immediately, but we are still at the mercy of the bank's schedule.
If it was related to a bank account, correct. Normally what we bring to the board is the signatory authorizations, which we submit to the county as well, because we hold all of our cash in our bank accounts, but the county has access to those. They cut the checks through that. That's how they know we are authorized to. So to continue operations, we would bring that to make sure whoever comes on board is able to make those actions as well.
It's just one of those things I thought of because, we trust that people intend well towards the district, but leaving someone available to an account, could be a problem for us. So are there processes then, and just because I don't know, are there processes then that we turn around and we go, okay, this person has left, we immediately send a letter to the bank stating that no more, that nothing by this person should be processed from here on out? I mean, how does that work? And part of the reason that, as a mom, I'm on an account with one of my kids and I can't get off. They won't let me, and for some reason, my child has to say, because they're primary, it's been my own, what in the world is that policy? So I guess I'm just wanting to know how we do protect ourselves. Should we have a disgruntled employee at some time? How do we do that so that we don't turn around and have this availability?
Okay.
What do we do? Because I know we're trying to.
This is really an HR question because we have policies in place and we have procedures in place with different departments. One of the roles I hope to fill while I'm here is looking at how we not only onboard but offboard our employees. And the offboarding policies and procedures are now housed in various departments. I would like to bring them into the Human Resources Department where we would have sort of a one-stop shop where first we find out why the employee is leaving. Oftentimes it's, they're getting another job or they're moving or something. But then we also at that time will get equipment returned. We will have checklists for these kinds of things, like we've signed you off of these accounts, we've taken you out of email, we've collected your keys. And I just want to coordinate that through HR rather than doing it now as we do through various departments. I think it's just a more effective way to, one, close the loops on some of these things and do it in a timely fashion. So your question is a valid one and one that we're looking at closely right now, and I'm hoping to address this in the next couple of weeks, actually.
Thank you both, I appreciate it.
I just wanted to add that one of the things that was asked for by the board and added to this board policy is that no bank accounts from here on out can be opened without prior board resolution. So this bank account that prompted this change was opened by employees and the board was unaware, and many of us, all of us were unaware as well. And as people change, having that paper trail from the board that there was authorization and then the dual signatories should help with making sure that we can close things and get things changed over expeditiously.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans, you stated that the superintendent could have designees, but wouldn't they have to be on their card, on the bank card, as a signatory? I mean, she couldn't just say, oh, Dr. Kraft, you go and you sign. She couldn't do that, right?
That's correct. She would designate whomever to be part of that signatory card.
So right now it's just the superintendent and you.
Correct.
We do have our assistant superintendents that are able to sign warrants as well. So the board has approved that, yeah, but not on the bank accounts themselves.
Mrs. Lizaraga?
Yeah, I have a question about that too. Probably a suggestion, if we can change the language, maybe just to include an authorized user with the executive board and or the CEs for this user account. I don't know if that's possible to be very specific about who can use it, who can be able to assign as a signee or as a authorized user for the account.
I think it's pretty clear.
It is pretty clear, but it just said the superintendent and authorized user, it can be anyone. It is in general. So if we can specify specific to the executive cabinet, so that we know that who's going to be assigned as a authorized user.
I don't think that it's an automatic executive cabinet. It's their designee. So if we have the all executive cabinet, it might just be the business department and superintendent. So if we indicated that, I think we would not, it wouldn't be clear at that point,
Okay.
in my opinion, but.
I just wanted to give an example. When we did not have an assistant superintendent of business services for more than a year.
Yeah.
And at that point, our director of finance, Irina Cowart, did help out a lot. So if there was a need at that time that we needed to bring her forward as a signatory for whatever reason, maybe we had other absences, this leaving it a little bit broader would allow us to do that. But again, we would be bringing the resolutions to the board. We would be seeking authorization from you before anybody would be allowed to take on that role.
That was the second bullet point, is there?
That is why that's on
Okay.
there, or that second part of that first bullet.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that is, but the first one is following, but the second one is totally understandable.
That's where the designee comes in.
Okay.
So are we okay with that?
Yep.
So we have a first and a second. Do we have any additional discussion? Please vote.
Dan passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Item 10, general functions. 10A is a presentation on diversity as value added. Dr. Brady?
All right, well, good evening, Board President Betancourt Castañeda and trustees. I'm happy to be here tonight to be able to share with you really a year's worth of work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically auditing where we are in the National School District and what our next steps might be. And you can see from the title here that I've added it as diversity as value added. You have your report in front of you on your desk and a button as well. And I'll be explaining these throughout the presentation. I did have the honor this year, every Monday night for the past year, to participate in a diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate program through the University of Southern California Rossier Education program. And I was able to do that with Dr. Kraft and Dr. Hernandez. And you might recall that in my state of the district, I mentioned that this year we were really going to look at what we were doing with that layer of diversity, equity, and inclusion, auditing where we are, where we shine, and where we might need to improve and polish. The purpose is really twofold. And again, you have received both of these different components separately. The first component is the audit part. And that's in the front part of the report. And then the second part is a white paper, really some reflections that I took from the participating in the course, but something that will chart some next steps for us in a way that we can enter this work to help to grow it and fortify it in our district. I started the report by really looking at what the board commitments were. And you can see we have a board policy on equity. And our board policy really makes that commitment that we need to address the needs of our most marginalized learners. And that requires recognition of the inherent value of diversity. And you'll notice on your button that the U is in a different color because this year we're really celebrating the uniqueness and that unique individual diversity that each of us brings to creating that big picture of our district. For our resolution, it also commits to provide a safe, equitable, and high-quality education for all students and an inclusive working environment for all employees. And again, they're in the report, but they're also in the appendix, so you can read them in full and not have to dig for them as well. Then I added some salient quotes from the research, and you can see just the different topics that we learned about in our coursework. And the reason I put those quotes, of course, it's not a full literature review that you might see in a doctoral dissertation, but it just shows you all of the different aspects and the complexities of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of these are ways in which or doors, so to speak, that we could enter this work. So I looked at our demographics, both as our student demographics and our staff demographics. Currently, 84% of our student population is of Hispanic or Latino ethnicity, 9% is Filipino, and 7% makes up a variety of the rest of our cultures. This is not exactly synonymous with the population of National City. National City has 61% Hispanic, 18% Asian, and 21% of mix of other cultures. And this could be just the differences between our younger population in National City and some of our older residents that no longer have children in our school systems. So when I looked at our staff diversity and our staff enrollment, I wanted to see where it most aligned. And our National School District staff currently has 73% Hispanic, 5% Asian, and 22% other populations represented. And I think it's a really nice mix between being representative of our school district and our community. So I was very proud to see that breakdown. And again, in the appendix are the full breakdown so you can see it in more detail. Of course, we always want to look at our discipline data because we know that oftentimes students are disproportionately disciplined, especially students of color. And so when we looked at our suspensions, we found that our discipline data also aligned very evenly to our student enrollment demographics. And so we found that our students are not, we have equitable disciplinary practices. And I think that really speaks to the work that educational services and our sites have been doing around PBIS. You might read in the report and see some percentages for our Black students and our Filipino students, thinking maybe those are a little bit higher, a little bit lower compared to the enrollment demographics. But when we break it down by student, you can see from this chart, we're talking about 3 students each. So it's not a significant number. When we look at our academic achievement data, as you know, we've been in COVID and the California dashboard has been paused for a few years. And unfortunately, this is a snapshot in time, and I really didn't want to wait to get this information to you so that we could get working on this. And our CASPS data was not yet available and isn't available yet to have put it into this report. But when we break down our academic achievement data by our local assessments, we have the ability, you can see, to break down achievement by subject, domain, school, and grade level. And while our overall subject data really can be broken down by ethnicities, when you get into those deeper levels of the domains, you can't really tease down by domain into those different ethnic groups. And that is why Dr. Kraft has been leading the work around MTSS, multiple tier systems of support, looking at students by name and by need. And again, we're going to work to get deeper into how do we collect that trend data so that we can really look at where our student needs are. In terms of curriculum and instruction, we have a lot going on, but always room to grow. For example, we've been building curriculum resources in curating different diversity collections. Our district resource teachers have been doing this to celebrate different cultures when we have Black History Month or Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and so on. We have put it in our LCAP to purchase diverse library books, and we have been making good on that promise, ordering new books every single year to add more diversity on different heritages. Our benchmark curriculum and our benchmark Advanced Adelante language arts include diverse authors, they have diverse stories, equitable resources, and they feature culturally comprehensive instruction. We are especially proud, as I mentioned, of our work around positive behaviors and intervention support because research shows that schools that implement PBIS with fidelity have greater equity in school discipline, which we also saw from our own discipline data. We have our California state standards, our California state frameworks, all of them really steeped in culturally responsive lessons and expectations for students. Our biliteracy programs really enhance and affirm the value of bilingualism and biliteracy and the attainment of proficiency in more than one language. Our Kimball Dual Immersion School continues to grow, and our enrollment is up this year. While our SET bilingual programs, that enrollment has continued to wane, and it remains a focus for us to find out how we can refresh and rejuvenate that program to include more biliteracy options for students. And that is under review. And I think Dr. Kraft is going to turn it from a committee into a task force this year to really try to get some traction there. And finally, teachers across national school districts, specifically our NCETA, have put together a series of lessons that foster a healthy learning environment surrounding race, gender, and ability. And these lessons are available to all of our teachers through a playlist in the Thrively playlist software program. And so again, so many things happening with curriculum and instruction, and each year we look to see where we can continue to build on it. This year I was happy to host 3 parent roundtables in February, March, and April, and thank you to Trustee Lizarraga for attending both as a board member but also as a parent. By design, we did have them translated by one of our principals, Mr. Francisco Lopez, but we did ask our staff not to attend. We wanted our parents to feel as if they could tell us where we shine, but also maybe give us some hard feedback that they might not be comfortable to say in front of staff members. You can see in the appendix the full list of what they said each of those meetings. I think our biggest attendance was at the second one, which we talked about inclusion of students. And really all of the ideas for next steps are embedded in the context or in the written report. And they talked really about things like expanding opportunities for parent training, providing greater opportunities for inclusion of special education students, and the innovative ways in which we could celebrate and recognize different abilities of students. I also provided an opportunity for our staff to give input through a survey in May. And I used the same topics that I talked about with the parents in person to drive the questions on the survey, so we could look across the data to make sure that if there were themes, we could capitalize on those themes. Again, the raw data for every survey response is in your appendix. So if you want to see the discrete comments, you can read them in the appendices. But there were really 2 big takeaways from the staff survey. And one was that to create the conditions that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion for students and families, we must first ensure that these conditions are created for and felt by the staff. And the second was that to build on positives and address the needs of improvement, staff must be part of the decision-making process and the co-creation of the next steps. We had some additional survey data that we got for staff and students through the California Healthy Kids Survey. That is fully outlined in the report as well. And the surveys for these revealed that we really need to have a deeper focus on student involvement, biases and racial ethnic achievement, student response to bullying, teacher and student relationships, student voice in decision-making, and student behavior. The California Healthy Kids survey taken by our staff also indicated that 40% of our teachers feel that they need professional development on working with diverse racial and ethnic groups. So part 2 was a report on that white paper that I sent you at the end of June, where I talked about some reflections. And this is really a pathway into how we can collectively work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I believe, based on our board policy, that we can do this by focusing on diversity as value added. Because if we
recognize and value individuals for their unique attributes, then they will see diversity as value added. And you can see that when we look not only at the skills that people bring, but the different identities that we bring to the table, we're able to build better trusting relationships. We need to have that collaboration. When people are collaborating, they feel like they belong. And when they give input, they need to know that their voice matters, that we're going to actually make changes together. And when we make changes together, we have collective ownership, where sometimes we are the leader and sometimes we are the learner. And what we've seen throughout this year is that we have a lot of leaders in this work here and a lot of expertise here in National School District. And again, when we think of it in full circle, it really goes back to our core values. It goes back to children first, relationships matter, whatever it takes. And when we anchor this work in our core values, it will help us to go back to that board commitment to recognize the inherent value of diversity and acknowledgement that educational excellence requires a commitment to equity and opportunities provided to students and the resulting outcomes. And so our next steps will be to create 2 committees. One, a value-added committee. This committee will be focused on how do we better recognize and celebrate our staff and our students. The second committee that Dr. Kraft is going to lead will be around diversity, equity, and inclusion, really looking at this report, digging in, what's missing from the report, what are the next steps, do we agree with them, what can we implement right now, what's going to go on the roadmap for when we might implement it. And the third is seeking training opportunities. We heard a lot of themes throughout all of the different input gathering that people want more training in this area. So what are the training opportunities that we're going to have? What will be training for all? And what will be personalized professional development opportunities? And then the last I want to leave you with, National City is really a tight-knit community, and we have been working very hard to develop stronger relationships with our community partners, and we know that they need to be partners with us in this work so that when we're serving children, we're all speaking that same language around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I know it's a lot, it's a long report, but I want to make sure that I left a little bit of time for any questions that you have. And again, we'll be working on this for the next year. So if you think of a question after tonight, I'm happy to get back to you and bring that forward to the committee with Dr. Brown.
I'm very happy that we're focusing on diversity, especially during these times. Very happy with the work that you're doing on that in that area. And I'm curious to find out if during the parent roundtable, were there any major concerns that the parents were voicing?
You know, I have to tell you, I was a little bit nervous because when you solicit feedback to say, you know, what's good, but also, you know, what might not have been a good experience for you, I really wanted to get into their lived experiences. They were overall very, very positive. I think what came out that was really salient were 2 things. One, the biggest group we had was with parents of special education students. When we mentioned the word inclusion, and I know that Trustee Lizaraya will tell you, parents came out and they said that they didn't feel that their children had enough opportunities to be included with their general ed peers. It was so powerful that we felt that we couldn't wait for this report to be done, and we started immediately on the work to dismantle our hubs so that students could attend classes in their neighborhoods, so that they could make play dates and play with the students. They could attend school with their siblings whenever possible. It is a change that's going to be a little bit slower. Some of the students that were in 6th grade want to stay at the school they've been at. We wanted to honor that wherever possible, but eventually it will be where it's spread out across the district. So that was a big change. The second one was, and I was surprised by this, a few parents at the dual immersion school said that their children who spoke Spanish didn't feel included, or they didn't feel like they belonged. And I thought, wow, you're at a dual immersion school where Spanish is being spoken. So I asked for some clarification, and if I misquoted, please correct me. But I think what I heard was, it's not in the Spanish classes where they don't feel included. It's in the English only classes. And we have teachers that only speak Spanish or only speak English, and they don't veer from those roles in the program the way it was set up. So we talked to Mr. Lopez and we said, what can we do to fix this so that students, we want it to be an asset and the students to feel comfortable to connect at all times in both languages. And one of the big changes we made this year is we had 3 teachers that did not have a BCLAD or bilingual authorization, and we did involuntarily transfer them to new schools. So every teacher at Kimball now will be bilingual and will be able to speak both languages, and we'll do more self-contained classes so the students will know it's Spanish time or English time, but still feel included in those classrooms at all times. So those were, I think, the 2 big takeaways I would mention.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And again, we couldn't wait.
Ms. Gates?
Perception is reality, is what my principal has said. And so with a lot of the things that I'm sure you've heard, there are things that we can do. But one of the things when it comes to perception, the biggest thing about perception is back to the relationship. And so the diversity is value added page where you talk about a theory of action. If we value individuals for their unique attributes, then they will see diversity as value added. I had someone try to convince me that it was enough for students to kind of just live in this space and experience it, for them to, like, it was going to be an osmosis thing, that it would just soak in and they would realize that their grammar wasn't correct or they could read this or whatever. And that intentionality was not necessary. And so I guess my point when I'm thinking about this page, when I'm looking at it, is we have to name it. So if there is, you mentioned, if we're seeing something, we're calling something out and commending a child, it needs to be something that we are intentionally naming for them. We are pointing it out. We're speaking it into their lives in order for them to see it in themselves and for the people around them to see it. That's going to require us doing it with each other as well. And so it can't be enough for one of us to speak that, that's a great idea, it would be a really great idea. No, Mrs. Melanie's, what you spoke, what you said here, that idea will work and be implemented. We can implement that. This is the strength of it. And they talk to us about it as teachers all the time, to be intentional, but we need to foster that, because otherwise we get stuck in the perception as reality part, where we might think that the only person we listen to is so-and-so, and the only person we listen to is so-and-so. Why? Because you aren't calling me by name. You aren't speaking it aloud. You aren't pointing out to that child or that teacher. It's one of the things as staff members, we're thankful for them. But are we telling them what we see in them that enhances their classroom? Are we saying those things enough? Are we talking to our staff, and are we telling Brian that he has changed the way we do meetings so that the entire community has access to them? We should be, because otherwise we aren't calling that out and in some ways claiming it for them.
And I think that's something that came out really clear from the parents. One parent said, well, my child is doing pretty well academically and they feel like they belong. And we do a lot of recognition around student achievement. We do a lot of recognition on how well you behave. But we have so many opportunities to call out ways in which we can be proud of either an ability, an identity, work that's happening, and we can celebrate that more. We're very happy that we'll be bringing our student presentations back to the board this year, so you'll be able to see the work the students are doing and be able to help us call out and recognize when they're being innovative, when they're being creative, when they are value added to the National School District.
Staff and student shout outs.
That is correct.
Mrs. Quezada?
Thank you. I just can't be grateful enough to you to considering doing what you did last year. And I know that the work is not going to stop here. And it's just the intro, and you have quite an idea given time to do this. And I'm really grateful for that. And knowing the fact that the word abilities was there, students from special ed have abilities. And they have high expectations on those IPs, and I'm really grateful that you're including the word in there as an ability. But I would like to also know that we have a abilities for learning month recognition or awareness. So that'll be nice to see it next year on a report, or probably another time on a board meeting, so that public know that we're doing something about how the perception and the reality for those struggle abilities for learning is also being spread out and reached and spread out to parents that are afraid, because when you realize that your kids doesn't learn as the others, it's also value, and we need to empower them to say yes, they need support, and how will I ask for who should I ask for, or how we're gonna start, because it's difficult to admit that your son or your daughter that you don't have the capability to speak out and face that challenge. So I'm glad that you have that ability word there, and I'm happy for all the parents that they know that the kids need ability, but they don't know how to ask for it or how to put their own expectations on there too. So I'm grateful that you did that for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We talk so much about celebrating differently abled people and what we bring. So that will be one of the things we can bring to the value added committee and talking about that ability awareness recognition. And I think we have somebody that I could assign that to for his task.
Thank you. We're so happy to have you on board.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Brady, for your participation in this and all your valuable information. I think it's just such an asset to be able to have this type of involvement, activities, everything for our community, because we need to make sure that we are empowering all those involved in our kids' lives education to ensure they have the best and successful education that we can provide to them. And thank you for your perfect attendance in your class, as you mentioned. So,
Are there brownie points for that?
I did 100%, even on Memorial Day, we had class.
So
And I
that
went
out. But also Dr. Kraft for your participation. I know it's extended your Mondays, but it's something that we will, as a district, value, having you have both participated in the knowledgeable, and we do gain to be able to bring back to our community. So thank you to you both.
Thank you so much. And again, I think this is just a launch step. So it's the intro. And again, you have all of this. If you have any questions, let me know. Where are you going?
Moving on to item 10B is to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on June 22nd, 2022. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the June 22nd meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second, and it looks like we have discussion.
Well, first I need to abstain because I was not here, so I just want to state that clearly. But I did notice on item 10B, and I had asked about it, and I know that I put my little tag in here. There was a piece, and I know I was not here, but the reason I brought it up was because it was something that didn't make sense to me as I read it. And the clarification is, again, 10B, the statement was financial impact amount to reflect, not to exceed. And I guess that if I had been here, I would know what that meant. but just reading the minutes, it's not clear. So I believe from what Dr. Brady had explained to me, it should read not to exceed $3,000. And so I'm asking if that can be added to the minutes, so that anybody who's reading it goes, oh, that's what that meant.
Yes, we can, we'll make that change to clarify that it's to be reflective of not to exceed the amount in the agenda item of $3,000, the financial impact of that item.
So,
That's all.
thank you. So the maker of the motion and the second, will you accept those changes?
Yes.
Perfect. So we have a motion and a second. With no additional discussion, please vote.
And it passes 3 yes, 1 absent, 1 abstain.
Thank you. Item 11 is educational services. Have none. Item 12, human resources. Item 12A, authorize the assistant. Did you have something to say?
I just want, Trustee Gates, I was on vacation. Don't worry, August 10th is coming.
She did have some. Get something in there.
Hey,
You saw her face, huh?
I trust you with work.
Yeah.
There's no way for the assistant superintendent of ed services to not have been working prior to school starting. There's just no way. So.
Okay. So 12A is to authorize assistant superintendent of human resources to hire temporary employees.
Yes, this is basically just a safety net. Students come to us in various numbers at various sites. And so our first line of defense, of course, is to look at our current staffing and make sure that we have teachers in place for students. If we were to get a surge of students, it's nice to have this in our back pocket. Oh, am I not talking into this? Oops, it stopped. Okay. It's nice to have this in our back pocket in case we do need to add classes. We can quickly do so. And this is better, I would say, the idea of temporary classroom teachers than hiring a sub. Because if we have good teachers in place and we give them a temporary contract that could actually lead into a regular contract, we'll hang on to that. If we say you're a sub until we can figure this out, we might lose them to other teachers. And subs are really hard to get right now. So this is, we may not use them. But if we do need to use them, we really appreciate having this already approved by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve item 12A.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Please vote.
Yeah, it passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Item 12B is to approve CT 3847 with Swing Education to provide substitutes. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? I just, discussion item. I know that we had some incentive for our retired teachers. Will that be something that we're gonna revisit so that way we can have an incentive for them to return? To us?
I'm seeing your superintendent nodding, so I would assume that's a yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a first and a second. No additional discussion. Please vote.
And it passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Business services. 13A is presentation and acceptance of the Gasp number 75 actual valuation report for the National School District other post-employee benefits. Mr. Evanesians?
So annually, we have to update our actuarial report for other post-employment benefit costs. Those are the benefits that our retired employees receive, generally health and welfare benefits. And there's a cost to that, and we have to project out what that cost will be into the future. And each year we update that information based off of the information that Nyhart, our vendor, provides us. And Sandy DeCall is here to present that information. So.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Sandy, the Nyhart consultant, and today I will be going over the Gaspi fiscal year end 2022 results for the retiree healthcare plan that the district provides. I will keep it brief and can take on any questions at the end, but please feel free to interject as I'm going through if something comes up that's not understandable. Okay, so for today, I will be giving a quick overview of our valuation process, model, data, and assumptions. I will then jump right into the results for fiscal year end 2022, and then jump into a discussion on long-term risks and strict strategies to kind of deal with them. Starting off here, we kind of detail out our valuation process on this slide. And what we do first is we collect all of the data related to the retiree healthcare plan. That is the census data, the premium rate information, information about the plan and eligibility. We then program that all into our valuation model, which comes up with projected benefit payments that the district is expected to pay as it relates to this retiree healthcare benefit. This takes into account all those assumptions and data that we're using, and we then discount those projected benefit payments to get a present value, and allocate that to past, future, and current service to get all of the needed Gaspi results. Moving on, I will go over the changes that we made since the last valuation. That was for fiscal year end 2021. And I'll start with a little note about Gaspi reporting. What is required is every other year, a full valuation where we update the census data, as well as all the other assumptions. In the in-between years, so the years that we don't do a full valuation, we do a simplified or a roll-forward valuation where we project from the prior full valuation. So kind of an every other year cycle. For fiscal 2022, this was a full valuation year. And so we did update the census data as well as all these assumptions. We started by updating the discount rate from 2.12 to 2.25. And this is based off of the bond market as of the measurement date. So it jumps around a bit and it can be unpredictable. We also updated the mortality tables to be the most recent tables. And we updated the termination and salary scale assumptions to be consistent with the most recent CalPERS experience study, or basically the assumptions that the California retirement system uses. Excuse me. Lastly, we did not update any plan changes for this year since there were none, so pretty consistent with the prior valuations. Next slide I will go over is our actuarial model. And this is really what comes up with those projected benefit payments related to the retiree healthcare benefit. The first step is to kind of program in the plan benefit information and eligibility. The district pays a percentage of the retiree premium, depending on the years of service for an employee. Eligibility for this benefit is age 55 with either 15 years or 10 years of service, depending on the group. And this benefit stops at age 65. There's no district contribution for the spouse benefit, and all this goes into our model along with our key assumptions. We use a lot of assumptions, but there are two pretty important assumptions that I'd like to point out here. The first is the healthcare trend, and that is really the rate that we expect healthcare costs to increase in the future, or medical inflation, essentially. We program that out and we update that each year. We see that this is around 6 to 7% in that first year and trends downward over time. The next major assumption is that discount rate piece. This is based off of the bond market and is updated on a yearly basis, so it can be unpredictable. And it works inversely with the liability, meaning that a lower discount rate leads to a higher liability and vice versa. So we used 2.12 for the last valuation and updated it to 2.25% for this year. So so had a little bit of a liability decrease associated with that. Some interesting news is that this was as of December 31st, 2021, and that rate has actually increased significantly since then. We have the June 30th rate, and that is 4.09%. So we do expect for the next valuation, if that rate holds up, to see a liability decrease associated with that. Okay, last one of my little introductory slides here is the premium rates. These are the underlying basis for the costs that we develop and the calculations that we use. Here are the rates we used for the most recent valuation. And in general, lower premiums means lower liability. In terms of the update for this year, not too much to note. Premiums came in line with our expectations. So really, we didn't see a huge gain or loss as a result. I'll pause quickly here just to see if there are any questions on any of the process or assumptions used in the valuation. It's kind of a lot to take in.
The healthcare trend, they're like dropping from 7% or from 7% to 4.5 in 10 years, or you're saying that we translate that for me?
Yes.
Because right now what my brain is saying is that I get healthier as I get older, which doesn't make sense. So I figure that there's something I'm missing.
Sure, absolutely. So the healthcare trend rate is basically saying that your Kaiser premium of, in this example, $819 is expected to increase next year based off of just the population, aging factors, all the factors that go into it. This is also based off of data that we look at year over year and how premiums actually move. And we look at a lot of nationwide surveys for this. So we do expect that premium to increase by 7% in the first year, then 6.75% in the second year, then 6.5%, all the way until it reaches 4.5%. Now, the reason you find this schedule set up like this is because medical costs have actually been very high over recent years, and we see them increasing at a rate much higher than regular inflation, which is why we have a whole separate assumption, not separate from regular inflation, that kind of covers these specific costs. And the methodology is really, or the belief is that that 7% can't really hold on for too long, that even though we've been seeing rates of 7% increases year over year, that ultimately we expect them to level out at a certain point in time, which is why you see this graded schedule down, where eventually you end up with medical costs increasing 4.5% per year. So it's similar to inflation in that it does increase the medical cost each year, but we just have a schedule set up to kind of recognize that we have seen very high increases in medical costs over recent years, but we don't really expect that to be a long-term expectation. The benefit payments that we project out go out 60 years. So if we were to give them the higher rate for that whole time, it would be very meaningful. But we don't really expect that to be what will happen. These are assumptions, so we don't know.
All right,
Hope that made sense.
That makes more sense, yes.
On the previous slide, you have
Sure.
the discount rate. Could you explain that to me, please?
Sure, absolutely. So we use the information we know about the benefit and the data to come up with these projected benefit payments that the district is expected to pay for this retiree healthcare benefit. From there, what we do is we discount that all back to the measurement date of December 31st, 2021. And to do that, we need an interest rate, and this is the rate that we use to do that. So essentially, a cash flow 10 years from now would be discounted backwards 10 years to kind of get it to be on a level playing field. So we have everything as of that measurement date, which is kind of required under Gaspi reporting. So it's a pretty meaningful assumption in the valuation, and the rates have been at lows recently, but we do see them creeping up now with how the financial markets are performing. Sure, of course. Okay, so now I will jump right into the results, which leads me here, kind of a nice little segue. And these are the projected benefit payments that we expect the district to pay for this retiree healthcare benefit. We show them in this bar chart at the top, and then also numbers in a table at the bottom. And you can see that they start off at about $600,000 and and increase all the way up to about 2 million. And they're not moving in any sort of pattern. This is based off of the data and the assumptions that we have, and we take all that information and project everything out. So that's kind of what we're showing here. You can see there is a lot of variance, and these benefit payments do jump around a lot, making it somewhat of a volatile benefit to maintain, which is why we're here to help. Now, if you were to sum up all of these benefit payments, we expect the district will pay $51.9 million over 100 years, all the way out for the length of this benefit for the closed group population of your current employees. So that's kind of the starting point for all of our calculations. And then what we do is we use the discount rate to present value them and get the valuation results, which I have here on the next slide. So we take that 51.9 million and we discount it using that 2.25%, and we get to 35.0 million. So you can see that just by applying the discount piece, the total contribution amount drops from 51 to 35, just representing the time value of money and taking everything back to that measurement date. So that's how important that discount rate is when coming up with this liability. From there, we have the present value of total contributions, and we split this up into various pieces to get everything we need for Gaspi reporting. The main item that's needed is this total accrued liability or total OPEB liability of 16 million. And what this is the present value of contributions or benefit payments related to the service that's already been accrued by your employees and your retirees. So it doesn't include any future service. That's all included in this gray bucket over here. And that's really reflective of us projecting out all of the service and calculating benefits. So that falls into that piece. The last piece I'll mention is the service cost, which represents pretty much the 1 year cost of this benefit for an additional year of service for all of your employees. So the 16 million is the main number that Gaspi is looking for, the total OPEB liability, and what you see year over year in your report. Okay, so moving on, Gaspi does require us to show a balance sheet liability related to this plan, and since there are no plan trust assets, that is just the total unfunded liability of 16 million. You can see this is up a little bit from the prior amount of 15.5 million, just due to gains and losses throughout the year. So not too much of a change there. Okay, so that pretty much covers the results. And now I'll shift over to just a strategic risk discussion. As I mentioned a few times throughout this presentation, these benefit payments are based on our assumptions, data, and premium rates. All of these things that could change over time, which means there's a lot of embedded risk in this liability. And this slide kind of goes over a few things that the district can do if they wanted to manage that risk. Keeping a close eye on premium rates, healthcare trends, always a good idea just because they really are the basis for our calculations. And also doing projection of your liabilities just so there's no surprises, or is something we also see clients doing. The one thing I wanted to bring up here is go into a little bit more detail, is establish an OPEB trust. So right now the district has a liability of 16 million and is projected to pay out these benefit payments based off of what we assume and the data. If the district were interested, they could set up an OPEB trust to kind of offset that and put money into the trust, which at a certain point would then be used to pay for benefits later. I'll go into a little bit more on the next slide. Basically what it is, it's setting up just a dedicated trust. And what it does is that money can only be used for OPEB assets, and it's a specific type of trust. When you do that, Gaspi does allow you to have like a big advantage when calculating your OPEB liability. As I mentioned, we're using this 2.25%, but if you were to set up a trust, we would be able to use something closer to 6%, which is pretty meaningful in the liability. We know that the 2.25% gives us a liability of 16 million, and this 6% drops it down to about 12.5 million. And that's really because when you are using your trust to fund your benefit, Gaspi allows you to reflect that expected return on your trust assets and use that as your discount rate. So as you set up a trust, you would move towards that 6% and your liability will lower. Obviously, this comes with some cons, while there are many pros, but with the main one being budgetary needs. Sometimes the assets aren't available. We find that a lot of our clients do end up, once they get the trust set up, having more flexibility with their cash flow, just because if they needed to, they could take funding breaks from the benefit. But it is a lot to get set up. I know we've looked into this in the past, and we would definitely be happy to help. We would be happy to explore helping with this in the future if this were something the district were interested in. Last thing I'll point out on this slide is we are sitting here at the 2.25%. And as I mentioned, we know that the current rate is actually 4.09% as of June 30th, 2022. So if that rate holds up, you're already kind of expecting a decrease in your OPEB liability, luckily, just by the nature of the bond markets. So that helps already. If you were to move towards an OPEB trust, we could look into lowering that even more by using that higher discount rate. So that was all I had in terms of prepared remarks, but I'd be happy to go into more detail or take on any questions on this or really anything else as it relates.
I'd just like to add, we are exploring developing a trust. We did set aside at least $1 million in our budget to fund the trust. Currently, I'm working with CalPERS to establish a trust. It is complicated, but we will bring that to the board to establish the trust and fund the trust. CalPERS has the lowest management rates to have to manage the trust, as well as the returns are market comparable. So that is in the works, and we hope to bring it to the board soon.
So will CalPERS, they're going to manage our fund, and will it be for classified and certificated?
Correct. They'll act as just like any trust you establish. They'll manage the trust. It's separate from the pension side of things. So they have their fiduciary duty to manage investments for the trust. It's kind of like joining the pool that they have for they've established for trusts for this OPEB liability. It's a very large trust pool that they have. They give the option for public agencies to join it, but it is separate from their pension trusts that they have. To answer, yes, it's for regardless of what status, classified or certificated, it would still be for just OPEB liabilities for any employee that we have.
Mr. Venetian, when you think difficult to implement a trust like this for the OPB, this is difficult because of we might lose the money or we might take a long time to establish, or what's the risk?
The difficulty is more in terms of the administration part of it, okay. the establishment of it. They want to know that you as a district have done your homework to know what you're getting into, how much money you're investing. Like this updated actuarial report, I will need to provide to CalPERS to show that, yes, we do know what we owe. That information is up to date. They want you as an agency to know what you're getting into, but also provide them with the most accurate information before they establish a trust for the agency.
Okay.
It's a lot of red tape.
Okay.
And from what we had discussed before, the intention is that we will be basically filling up the trust amount so that future monies are paid out of that.
Correct.
To our retirees.
Exactly.
So for a while, we will be paying into two pools, but as the trust is full, that will be taking over for the payments for towards retirees, correct?
Correct.
So there's a little wait at the beginning, but long-term planning is the benefit of this.
Exactly.
Do we have any additional questions?
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Of course, thank you for having me. Let me know if any questions come up on anything.
Thank you. Okay, now we need to accept the report. So can I get a motion?
I will move to accept the actuarial valuation report.
I second the motion.
We have a first, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion? Please vote.
Item passes 4-1 absent.
Thank you. Item 13B is to adopt, 13B is to adopt resolution 22-23.01, determining the least capital assets threshold to comply with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board GASP statement number 87.
I move to adopt the resolution.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I have a first and a second. Do we have any discussion? Please vote.
Item passes 4-1 absent.
Thank you. Item 13C is to approve numbers 37 CT39, I don't know where I got 37 from, sorry. CT3964 with Studio One distinctive portrait to provide school photography services to the National School District Schools. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Please vote.
Item passes 4-1 absent.
Thank you. Item 14 is board cabinet communication. Mrs. Dawn.
I just want to welcome all our new employees. I'm very happy that you are here and excited to work with you and see what happens. Good night to everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mrs. Pizarro.
Thank you. Well, this is speak now about the new employees, and I'm excited. Very talented people came into our district, and I'm so happy to be part of the family. That in fact, we're our family. We know each other. So I would like to also welcome to the speech pathologists, a much needed asset in our school district, and hopefully we can make a great team on those IPs that they really need to work on. And also I would like to wish everybody happy rest of the summer because school begins in 2 weeks. So let's keep it going. Thank you. Have a great night.
How many days, Michelle?
Well, my days are different than your days.
Oh,
She was counting it.
I think it's a week and a half for now.
That's okay.
I'd also like to welcome everyone, all our new people who are joining us. It's a joy to have you and to know that you will be bringing your strengths and your heart to National School District. Thank you for joining us. Yay school all the time. Thank you to our classified employees who have continued to work and to our certificated staff who have been doing intercession and summer. And July 20th, our teachers will be starting our professional development. July 25th, we get to see every little cherub that was ever in National City come back to us. So we're excited. We're especially excited for our littlest ones who are going to come and experience school for the first time, because how much fun is that? And in those last few days, I'm going to recommend whoever possibly can go to the zoo. They have a fantastic new children's area. It is so much fun. You can water play, you can climb on the rope swing, or like the rope bridges and all kinds of stuff. You can see some really weird insects. It's pretty cool. So, world famous San Diego Zoo. don't like use all your last days of summer. But we'll see you next time.
Mr. Albanese?
So I just wanted to acknowledge the work that the maintenance operations have been doing, even tonight, broadcasting this tonight. They've been working all summer to get our schools ready, do as much deep cleaning as possible. But one of the major projects that they've been coordinating is installation of blinds in the classrooms. We're planning on having that completed before school starts, as long as everything goes to plan. So that is the plan. If it doesn't work out, we'll make sure that is completed as soon as possible. But that is currently happening, and the plan is to have that completed before school starts. So, thanks for all your hard work, guys.
Dr. Baird?
Well, again, I would also like to thank our employees for all the hard work this summer. It's you have a well-oiled machine here in the National School District, and really a great team. And I've had a brief opportunity to interact with your leadership team. Wonderful group of people doing really great work. So it's really a pleasure and privilege to work with you while I'm here.
Thank you. Dr. Kraft?
Thank you. I'd like to welcome our new employees. It's very exciting for what can be, what is possible for next year. Thank Dr. Brady for the report on DEI. It was a compilation of a lot of work and a lot of courageous conversations, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to be part of the DEI committee. And Mr. Albanese beat me, but I also wanted to do a shout out to John and David and Wendy and the tech team and all the people behind the scenes. They've been working furiously to get our schools up and ready and polished and pretty, and really collaborating together. Just a testament, I think, to our values in National School District.
Thank you. Dr. Brady?
Well, I want to start by saying thank you to Dr. Baird. He has been on roller skates since he came, getting everyone hired. But being part of those interviews has been like having a mirror held up. When people talk about the research they've done in the district and how proud they are to come and join our team, and the work that that went into the audit to really be under the covers, so to speak, I just feel really proud to be part of the National School District. I'm proud of the people that are coming to join our team. I know some have left, but welcome to those who are here, but especially Maritza, you say, Dr. Kevin, we're really excited to have you join our executive cabinet team. I think Tim is the most excited. But it's just a testament again to the relationship that the board has with staff and the support that you give us to do this work. Whenever we need a special board meeting to get things done, you come together on your free time, you have those meetings, and we get to bring you new hires. And we're just really excited. We think we'll be fully staffed and ready to go for the start of school. So we may need one more board meeting to make that happen, but thank you again. I'm happy also that we've seen some of our internal candidates also move up, and we have a nice mix of external and internal to learn together from each other, and that diversity being value added. We had our leadership retreat day 1 yesterday, and Dr. Kraft will be leading leadership day 2 to really focus on how do we apply this concept of value added to student achievement. And Dr. Baird will be putting together a safety training because in lieu of our all-staff kickoff, we have made a promise to put safety first, and we will be spending our first 3 hours back as a staff for the new school year focused on safety. So I'll be putting more information in my memo for you, but that'll be happening tomorrow. We're going to co-create it with our leadership team, I believe. And then the last thing I want to just say to inform you, but also a public recognition, Susie Fahey let me know that she is retiring, and Teresa Hart has been named the Executive Director for Integrity Charter School. So congratulations to both of them.
Congratulations to both of them. Thank you, Dr. Brady. Just wanted to also welcome our new employees. It's really a pleasure to work alongside you and our new employees, and congratulations to our promotions in our district. It's nice to see, and it's a testament of the leadership again that we have here for to see so many internal candidates get promoted within. Dr. Berg, thank you for being here. I think this is your first official meeting, so welcome, because we had a special board meeting. And again, thank you for being here and supporting us through this transition. And maybe next week you can take your skates off, but I don't know yet. Thank you, Dr. Brady, for your presentation this evening. I know you put so much work into it, but thank you for all that information, and I look forward to seeing the work continue. And Sandy, who's gone, but thank you for her presentation. And thank you to all of those that put in so much work to get our kids the school ready for our students. I know that it was multiple departments that had to, whether it be cleaning the schools or preparing, materials and all this for classes, everything that it is to get our schools ready for our students' first day of school, which is very soon. So again, thank you for all of that. Also, it was nice to see so many people out in the community. I know we haven't had a community event in quite a while, and I didn't get a chance to see everybody that was there, but there were so many people at the Lions Club 4th of July Carnival. It was a huge success. It was a huge success, and I look forward to next year. However, I wanted to say thank you to the Alteon teachers and volunteers that were there to support the booth. They were always busy, and they took their own time to ensure that they were able to make it a successful fundraiser for Alteon. And lastly, enjoy the rest of your summer break. It's probably going to go very fast, but enjoy every minute of it. So, and thank you for being here tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Meeting adjourned.